Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology, and this is episode 16. And the date is August 18th, Sunday, August 18th. So what are we looking at today? We're going to have our usual moon void of course calendar for this upcoming work week. And then we'll look at a number of markets, the Dow, gold, Bitcoin, silver, and, things are happening with Deutsche Bank. And then I'll close with, just out of curiosity, I was looking at Nikola Tesla's Astrology. And, if he was still alive, he would be having some interesting transits. And possibly those transits could be reflected in our times by, a review of his work or clarification on, some of his inventions and things of that nature. So let's look at the void of course moon. Not a lot of major void of course time periods this week. Again, if you've never listened to my channel, I have to go over this every time, but I think it's important. What is the void of course moon? The void of course moon is the time it takes for the moon to transit from one astrological sign to another, and this occurs every 2.5 days. And sometimes this transition period is only a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And, people don't notice any, changes from that. But every now and then it takes many hours and sometimes a full day to move to fully move from one sign, astrological sign, to another. And during those time periods, from my experience, from the tradition of astrology, there is a shift in the psychology of the collective, we could put it that way. And the key words that I use, there's a sense of disengagement, there's kind of a shifting into neutral. And ideally, how these time periods can best be used would be to take a break, to take a little vacation, to rest, to play, regroup, to revitalize, go to the beach, etc. They are not good times for doing important business work or for starting a new major stage in your life, like getting married. They're not good times for spending a lot of money, signing a contract, buying a house, buying a new car. If you can, schedule around these time periods if you have something, major in your business, a very, very important meeting or whatever. Try to avoid really big decisions during this period of time. You can always step back and do kind of secondary work, maintenance work, and that every business has. So there's things that you can accomplish. But if you know that these time periods are coming up, try to schedule around them if you have something important on your to-do list. So when are they this week? This Thursday, August 22nd, there's a void of course that starts at 2:30 in the afternoon. Pacific Daylight Time. So this would be 5:30 p.m. on the East Coast, for example. So for most of the day on Thursday, the moon would not be void of course on the East Coast. When does it end? It ends Friday in the morning at 7:30 a.m. However, on the East Coast, that's 10:30. So the moon is still void of course early Friday morning on the East Coast. So you have to do the conversion here. So that's the void of course for this week. So let's look at the Dow Jones. I mean, we have so much happening in the markets right now. It really seems like we're at a critical juncture in certain respects. We just had a bounce, big drop in the Dow Jones Industrials on last Wednesday. It has sort of come down, possibly forming a double bottom. At this blue line is a support area that I've drawn in. I use standard technical analysis indicators along with astrology. The astrology represents high energy days. Often, not every time, but very often. And the direction of the price movement can often be determined by the context of the market, the technical, fundamental context of the market. And there are some astrological indicators that primarily are bullish or primarily are bearish. But every now and then the fundamentals, the technicals can override that. But still, there's going to be price movement, frequently price movement on those days. So the vertical lines here are related to the astrology. And we have a number of them coming up. We've had them just during this volatile period just recently. I think with this downdraft kind of started with, I won't go into a lot of detail, but I knew that this astrology represented increasing volatility back in, late July, 24th of July. I'm looking down here. And then, increasing volatility. However, the point with the Dow Industrials is that we may get a bounce here. The astrology indicates we may get a bounce. The big question mark is whether, the sentiment has turned, whether announcements from the Fed or Trump and tariffs will, change the complexion of things. If I didn't know anything about the news or anything about the technicals and was just looking at the astrology, I would say for a couple weeks we're going to get a bounce. And we may get a bounce up to this blue line, which is another resistance area, okay? So, all bets are off if these energy days, these high energy days, end up breaking this blue line, okay? Because we're already through this trend line, which is very critical. So we got a point here, and we've broken through. And very often we have what's called a back test, where the markets will come back and test that line, which may have already happened. But the astrology tells me that at least the odds are that we're going to trade at least sideways here for a couple weeks. So another, important, significant event that's happening in the world is that Deutsche Bank is suddenly looking very weak. Just over the last 10 days or so, it has really fallen. In fact, on Thursday, it went through its all-time low. And again, if you're not into the markets, Deutsche Bank is the biggest bank in Europe, the biggest bank in Germany then, and it has a lot of what I look at derivative time bombs, derivative bets on its books that could, affect the whole banking system if suddenly this market started to tank. And so what happened on Friday? We get this huge volume day. And, from my position in the world, I don't know how much this is central bank stepping in, short covering, but looks like this market, so they're trying to save this market right now, and for good reason in some respects. But that's the key level, this past low. They're trying to keep this bank above that level, so maybe buyers will step in. If you're into investing, watch Deutsche Bank. Okay, I'm a believer in sound money and in gold, and gold has been on an upswing, in fact, it's at all-time highs in many, many countries' currencies, relative to their currencies. And so I track the gold market. And to me, I should have a weekly or monthly chart as well, but this green trend line I've got drawn in here, and I'm using GLD as a proxy. This green trend line is very important, and it's broken through this trend line. In fact, just on would have been, so Friday is that very faint candlestick that you see there. Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, a very volatile day in the precious metals, but it closed just above that trend line, kind of confirming how important it is. I would like to see this market stay above that trend line, okay? We do not have a lot of bullish astrology days over the next 2-3 weeks. We have one coming up on August 21st, and I'll look at silver in a minute, and that may help kind of supplement the bullish energy here. We'll have to see. I would lean on playing the technical indicators at this point. If the Dow Jones bounces and rallies, we may see a pullback somewhat in the precious metals. So I would look at this trend line, this uptrend line, and maybe mark your calendar and see what happens on August 21st. Okay, silver maybe could possibly be taking the lead, and we'll find out shortly between in reference to gold. Oftentimes it follows gold, and sometimes the reverse. And so, like gold, we have silver trading above an important technical level. And you see it right here, how it's held up. In fact, on that same, so that would be Friday, like Friday, Thursday, on the same Tuesday morning where these markets were very volatile. Again, it closed above this important area. It has a little bit more bullish energy coming up, but actually it's not for another 10 days or so. You see my cursor down at the bottom. So again, we may see some sideways movement. I'd love to see this market stay above the resistance level, play the technicals. Things get more bullish in September for the precious metals. Okay, Bitcoin. I trade some Bitcoin, and it's forming what seems like a very long, drawn out triangle or pennant. It's bounced several times off this green trend line, which is supportive. It, like the precious metals, it too has a little gap here in bullish astrology energy. So the technicals may be paramount, because we're in a somewhat oversold area on the momentum indicators, RSI, MACD. And if we get the MACD to cross here, then we could get an upswing, and just from a technical trade, challenge this downtrend line again, over the next week or so, because we do not have a lot of bullish stuff happening with Bitcoin for 10 days as well. You can see this August 28th date at the bottom here. So again, this is my main point in most of these markets, except for the Dow. The Dow, I think, is going to bounce, but these other markets, play the technicals. Let them lead you here. Okay. Just at the last minute, I decided to look at Tesla. I had his chart. This is, let's see if I can remember right. This is 1856, July 10th. And in one of the biographies of Tesla, his birth time may be different, but I remember, somehow in one of my research around him, his mother had written how he was born just a little after midnight, like during an electrical storm. Maybe that just is myth, but I used that, and so the time of his natal chart, which is this inner circle, is just a minute or two after midnight on July 10th, 1856. The outer ring, this is a bi-wheel. These are the planets in transit currently. And so we look at the relationship between these two charts. And just to go through quickly, if my birth time is right, then Tesla had a Pluto conjunct his ascendant, which I think fits pretty well, because when you read his biography, when he started going to school and studying, mechanical engineering and electricity and so forth, he found the whole field very mysterious, and his research energy kind of got kicked in, and the interest in mysteries and doing in-depth research All those things are related to Pluto. He has Mars conjunct Moon. Mars deals with, facility and engineering and understanding having mechanical skills. Sun in Cancer. His imagination he used his imagination with all his inventions. He could work out details in his mind's eye, and that also is very, shows up in his chart here. He has a number of dynamics combining in his chart. This Mars-Moon conjunction is squaring his Sun-Venus, and so that just, there's just a strong activation of energy between this interest in understanding and doing engineering, researching these things, and using his own creativity, Sun-Venus energy to solve these problems. In addition, which isn't immediately apparent, I'm just going to share this with you, but I also use, in past videos I've said I use declinations, but I also use midpoints at times. And if you do the midpoint between Pluto and Uranus, you come up with something like 14 Taurus. Well, that 14 combination of those two energies of deep research, almost transpersonal creativity, that the combining of those energies is at 14 Taurus. And that ties right in with his, these energies in Libra. I mean, it's an in conjunction, but then this is a sextile to these energies. So you have a number of things in close combination, just energetic combination because of the degrees that they're at. And it shows up, and particularly with Pluto on the ascendant here. In the declinations, he has Jupiter, what's called parallel Pluto. So this one is someone who, even though he had major ups and downs in his life, he was very successful dealing with big businesses of the times. Westinghouse, Edison, J.P. Morgan. These were the power players of his day. He borrowed a huge amount of money. He was really, in his younger life, he was really into gambling, which is a Jupiter thing. And he was a card player, a billiard player. And, and so you see, his history is reflected in his astrology. But the Pluto side of it is also, in addition to research, studying the mysteries of life, it can have an association with just kind of primal energy. And that's one of in today's, standpoint, when you look back at Tesla, he's often known for tapping into free energy, the vibration of the earth or the cosmos, and bringing that down into a form that could be used. And I'm saying this at this point because the transits in his chart right now, which could reflect developments in our, today's life, relative to his inventions, the transit right now is kind of interesting because we have Uranus, if he was still alive, would be transiting his Pluto, okay? And in this respect, Uranus deals with inventions as well, deals with electricity as well. There's an overlap with, other planets. But it also brings to light things. It's sort of an awakening planet. Suddenly people have insight or better understanding of things. It's also related to, the masses being affected in some way. And in my own mind, this is my personal, speculation, but there could be, a revelation, which is a Uranian energy, a greater, increased understanding and revelation or disclosure about some, things that have been kept from us, some things related to free energy that Tesla was working with when he was still alive. and they could be happening during this this transit of Uranus to Pluto that you see happening relative to his birth chart right now. So I just wanted to throw that out, see if something comes up. But this is going to go on for the next year or so, and just sort of be on the lookout to see if there are new revelations or developments in this whole area of of free energy. So that's it for today. My name is Stephen again. I have a art and master's degree in psychology. I've been studying astrology for 40 years, applying it to financial markets for 25. I am a sound hard money advocate, and I do accept Bitcoin donations. So if you like this video, please click the like button, consider subscribing, and I hope to do another one next weekend. So thanks for listening.